Hello guys, I am back with another episode. There is a message that I want to share with you guys, and the message reads like this. Hello, how are you? So I came across this other video that was titled Confessions of a Slay Queen. I came across it on TikTok. I then managed to search for your channel on YouTube. Then I decided to send you my own story. I was also a slay queen. I met up with this other guy back home here in Nigeria. Currently, I am now staying in Europe. I had to flee from Nigeria because after I had tried to expose this guy, he then threatened to end my life. After I had seen that this man had so many connections, that is when I decided to flee my own country. I am now staying in Europe, and God was so gracious towards me because even when we were crossing the sea, our boat never capsized, but the other boat that we were traveling with, unfortunately, it capsized. And all of the people that were in that boat, I think that they all perished in the sea. One day I am going to come with that story. So when I met up with this guy, we met at a club where I used to go with my friends so that we can just relax. When I met with him, I then fell deeply in love with him. He told me that his wife had recently passed away. He was a bachelor. He was someone whom you could see that indeed is not very rich, but he was living a very comfortable life. When I met this guy, he then lied to me that he was involved in this oil industry and exporting a lot of stuff, even though I never even bothered to check if he was being honest with me or not. But this guy, in short, he was just a pimp who sell young ladies to this rich man in Dubai. Each and every day, I pray unto God that he gets arrested because the things that he's doing are very evil. I am from Nigeria, and you know that life in Nigeria is not easy. From the moment that I started dating him, he then started encouraging me to join Instagram and TikTok. Before, I was someone who was never used to this thing of Instagram, but because of him, I had to join Instagram. And I did not even notice that he was then preparing me to become more like a sex model. And at that time, before he eventually deleted my Instagram page, if you could go there, you would see that he was actually marketing me as a prostitute. And I never thought about that. Sometimes he would go with me to these luxurious places. Then he would actually hire a photographer. But at that time, since I was someone who was coming out of poverty, I thought that my life was actually changing because he then told me that he was going to rent out a flat for me almost in the middle of Lagos. And I drove top of the range cars. Most of these cars that I was driving, they were not in my name. He would just come with a car, then he would tell me that I should drive this car. But what I noticed is that I will never drive most of these cars for not more than 2 months. I suspect that most of these cars, they were stolen cars. And I think that he was dealing with people that smuggle cars out of Canada or maybe out of America. So they were using me as a test subject to see if I was going to drive that car for more than 2 months without any heat being on that car. After driving the car maybe for more than 3 months, he would then bring another brand new car. Then he would tell me to drive that car. Most of my friends gave me a nickname, and they said that I was the lady who always drive new cars. Brother, I don't even know how many times I traveled with that boyfriend of mine, traveling from Lagos to Johannesburg. Then sometimes we would actually fly from Joburg going to Durban or Cape Town. I don't know the reason why he was always traveling between Lagos and Johannesburg. Maybe he was also doing a lot of deals. Maybe he was also using me as a drug mule as I was traveling with him from Lagos to Johannesburg, because whenever I was with him, he would never want me to touch my own suitcase. He would only allow me to touch my own suitcase whilst we would have reached our destination. either in Durban or in Cape Town. That is when you will take that suitcase, and whenever we'll be in South Africa, you will make sure that you will have 2 separate rooms that will be booked for me and him. Sometimes he will sleep with me. Then on another nights, I'll see that he will be bringing in some of his South African girlfriends. But since he had a lot of money, I never bothered with his South African girlfriends, because I knew that he was taking good care of me, and he was also taking good care of my family. So that was more than enough for me. Like they say, if a man has the means to take care of 2 or 3 women, then he is allowed to marry as many women as he wanted. So I never bothered or to fight with his South African girlfriends. This was more like a ritual to him. Whenever I would travel with him to South Africa, he would go to the market, then he will buy my suitcase, and he will bring that suitcase so that I can pack up my clothes. After packing up my clothes, then he will take that suitcase away from me. Where he would go with that suitcase, I never knew. He would do this when we would be traveling to South Africa. Even the first time when he went with me to Dubai, he did the same thing to me. He went to the market, then he bought a very big suitcase for me, and I even asked him why he had bought such a large suitcase for me, because he had told me that some of my clothing, I was going to buy it whilst we were in Dubai, but he said, just pack your clothes, but do not pack a lot of your clothes. But the day that he came to pick me up, I then noticed that the suitcase, it seemed as if it had a lot of clothes, but I had packed only a few clothes. And he's a kind of a man that doesn't want a woman to ask him any question. Anyway, we arrived in Dubai, and when we arrived in Dubai, whilst we were at the airport, I hugged him and I kissed him, because I had never been this happy in my life. And when we arrived in Dubai, his contacts there, they had already booked me into this luxurious hotel. And when we went to the hotel, there was another car that was waiting for us. Then we had to exchange cars. And when we exchanged cars, I saw that he took out all of our luggage and the bags. But when we got into the hotel, he then claimed as if he had forgotten that suitcase and some of our bags in that car, and he rushed out of the hotel as if he was chasing after that car that had came to pick us up from the hotel. But I knew that it was just a lie. As a man who didn't want any woman to ask him any questions, I just chose to ignore him. And I thought that I was going to use this opportunity, if he was not going to find my suitcase, to buy for me very expensive clothes in Dubai. I wanted to buy a lot of clothes because I wanted to give some of the clothing that I was going to buy in Dubai to my younger sister and to my best friend. It was like a dream come true to me, and I didn't know that a nightmare was waiting for me. The experience that left me tongue-tied was when my boyfriend told me that he was not going to spend the night with me. He just said, there is another man that is going to come into this hotel, and please do not blow this up for me, because I have been waiting for this business deal for many years. And all of you that know Nigerian guys, if they speak with you in a very harsh voice, you will not have any strength to speak any word against him. I was really scared of him because he is quite a muscular guy. I wanted to ask him a lot of questions. What kind of a business deal was this, and why was he saying that I should not mess it up for him, because he have been trying to work out this deal for many years. But since he had spoken with me in a very harsh voice, I was really scared to question him even further. I just sat on the bed. He then pulled out some revealing lingerie. Then he told me to put on that lingerie. I went to the bath, then I put on that lingerie for him. Then when I came back from the bathroom, he was already gone. He just left a written note on the bed. And on that note, he had written a very simple instruction. He just wrote, do not blow this thing for me, otherwise you are going to regret. I just went into bed. I didn't even know what to expect. Maybe he had came all this way with me so as to sacrifice me. After a couple of minutes, that is when the landline started to ring. And when I picked up that telephone, that is when I heard from the accent that the man that was on the other side of the line, he was an Arabian man. He just said, "Are you able to dress like a 15-year-old?" This was quite surprising to me. I said, "Why do I have to dress as if I am a 15-year-old?" And he said, "I know that there is no time, but I wanted you to have a hairstyle that looked like that of a 15-year-old. And he said, "Do you enjoy cartoons?" And he just dropped the line. When he dropped the call, I just said, "This is really weird." But within a couple of minutes, I heard that there was a knock on the door. And when I opened, another man who was in a black suit, he walked into the hotel room. Then he said, "Please wear your clothes, or just wear a gown on top of your clothes, because I have to get you out of the room and get you back in this room before my boss comes to this hotel. Otherwise, I am going to lose my job. I am not going to ask you twice. If you refuse, I am going to drag you out of this hotel." I wanted to cry, Brother Nashi, but I just followed the order of that Indian man who seemed to me more like a bodyguard. When we walked into the parking area at the back of the hotel, there was a very beautiful Rolls Royce that was waiting for me, and there was already another man that was dressed in a black suit who was driving that car. Those two men went with me to this other back room hair salon, and when I got into that hair salon, it seemed as if that hairstylist, she already knew what to do with me, because after finishing all the makeup that she was putting on me, I was now looking more like a 15-year-old girl. Then she went away for a couple of minutes, and by the time that she came back, she was holding something that looked like a school uniform. Then I was given some instructions to put on that very short school uniform. I was now looking like a school kid. I followed the instructions. Then they drove me back to the hostel. When I went back to the hotel, after about an hour, that is when I heard a knock on the door. The man that was knocking at the door did not even wait for any response. He just knocked on the door. Then he walked into the room. This was the instruction that was given to me by those two bodyguards that had went with me to the saloon. They told me not to lock the door and not to be afraid. I had to follow that man's instruction when he had came to visit me. If I was going to follow all of his instructions, I was going to become a very happy lady in the morning. When that man came in, I rose from the bed. I knew everything that was going to happen to me. My Nigerian boyfriend, he had sold me up as a prostitute. Where he was, I did not even know, but I am pretty sure that he had been given a lot of money and he was enjoying taking his alcohol and his drugs somewhere else. That man walked in, then he started to abuse me. After he had finished abusing me, he then forced me to go to the toilet so that I can poo. After pooing in the toilet, he then told me not to flush that poo. I took out the poo from the toilet, then I placed it on the floor, and he told me to eat all of that poo. Then he just left. When the morning came, my Nigerian boyfriend came. Then he pretended to be so sorry with everything that had happened. He promised me a lot of money once we had reached Nigeria. He said, because you do not have a bank account, if only you had a bank account, I was going to transfer a lot of money in your account. But as soon as we land in Nigeria, I am going to give you a lot of money. But please do not tell anyone, because these people are very dangerous. I was really scared. On that same day, whilst I was still trying to come to terms with everything that had happened to me the previous night, my Nigerian boyfriend didn't even bother to notice that I was in a lot of shock and trauma. He just went out, and when he came back, he told me that he had already booked a flight and we were supposed to leave in about 3 hours. I didn't have any say in the matter because he was so rude towards me. We flew back to Nigeria, and when we landed in Nigeria, he just drove me back to my parents' house and he promised me a lot of money. That is how he dumped me. And when I asked him about my money, he then started to threaten me and he threatened my parents. He said that he was going to use a lot of voodoo on me and on my parents. So I went to Dubai and I came back to Nigeria without any single cent after eating my own poo. And my own boyfriend started to threaten me if I was going to tell anyone. He threatened even my own parents. Even up until today, I don't even want to share this story with anyone that knows me because he knows my parents. He even knows the school where my younger sister goes to. So I am afraid that if I try to expose him, maybe he will hurt my family. But I just wanted to share my own confession. I am going to come with my story, how I escaped from Nigeria and how I ended up in Europe. It was quite a tough journey for me.